Well, the story of O.J. seems to be the standout on that project. That's the one that everyone kind of lost their mind over. As someone who takes finances very carefully, very seriously, who invests in stocks, who I've also invested in art and stuff like that. To hear someone of Jay's caliber talk about financial freedom, talking about leaving money to his kids, talking about how silly the money phone is, and talking about how missing certain real estate investments, like, I thought that was amazing. I thought that actually created, waves in the community.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's something that we probably won't know the impact until years from now. Was the snowball effect, how it's reaching people and how they're thinking about fiscal responsibility in a different way. But once you have something, a song like that or an album is different than somebody telling you, because every time it plays, it's like, oh yeah, that, right? So it's something that's kind of repetitive that you might want to just listen to, and then you grab certain nuggets off of it. So that's why, another reason why I think it's genius. I think Jay just wanted to push the culture in a different way. Like I said, that reflecting, right? You think about everything you've done, and you're like, well, what's my legacy? What do I want it to be? How do I really want to impact? Do I want, people to know me, like Biggs? Or I want people to know that I was the first person to discover platinum or rose gold or black diamonds? Or do I want to say, look, I want to bust down these doors and open it for you guys, or say, you can do things this way. You don't have to go to the club with a gun. You don't have to be, the tough guy all the time. Just go and have fun, live your life, take care of your children, and try to do right.
Right, because I actually started an Instagram account called Vlad Stocks, where I basically lay out my own stock portfolio, and I talk about sort of the basic fundamentals of stock investing, without selling anything or any sort of upsell into this type of situation, just because I realized that our community has no idea about stock investing. I tweeted something that kind of resonated a lot, and got hundreds of comments. Was that I said the rich kids grow up watching their parents invest in stocks. Poor kids grow up watching their parents play the lotto.
That's dope, especially being able, like, as guys with the platform, right? Like you, as guys like me who's doing these interviews, to drop these nuggets to kids. That's the only way things are going to change. It was this, hope I'm saying it right. I know it was this experiment. My friend Chip talked about it all the time, that they was doing with rats, right? Trying to change the behavior. And they would cage rats, and they would feed them different and do different things inside the cage, and have different mazes for them to run around to try to change the behavior. And it wasn't until they changed the outside of the cage that the rats started, or the mice started to react differently. So a lot of times, people think about doing something different inside, but instead of thinking about the bigger picture, how do you change what's going on in the environment, right? Not only what's happening in the home. So when you step out, there's all these different programs, there's different people to talk to, there's mentors, things that you can do. It's kind of hard to change what's happening.
Yeah, I think the problem is in, when you talk about the community in general, there is, like, patience isn't really pushed. You know what I'm saying? Like
Trust me, I
letting things
know.
develop.
That's something I struggle with.
Yeah, I think we all do to a certain degree, but there's definitely like, for example, like with all my investments, I talked about how I bought Google in 2011 for $250 a share, and it's quadrupled since then. But it's taken 6 years.
Yeah.
And people look at it and say, 6 years, I ain't got that time. Fuck that. That's all you made in 6 years? Like, I could have doubled that and flipped that and so forth in a week.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah. And there was 3 distinctive times in my life where I've put a bunch of my savings into some risky shit, whether it's illegal or a friend who's got some sort of special hookup or whatever, and end up essentially losing it all.
Yeah.
And there's a mentality with people who don't have a lot of money to do that over and over again, and the lottery ticket mentality is that you buy these lottery tickets and you lose money essentially every time, but you keep buying them, as opposed to actually putting money into something that's going to grow over time.
Yeah. I know. It's probably hard to see people, I mean, especially in the stock market, unless you specifically concentrating on a long, on a short, right? But you look at the S&P and what the NASDAQ is doing, it is a long-term play. So if you look at the average over 10 or 15 years, or even 5 or 6 years, you can see what that percentage is and kind of narrow in to say, okay, wow, that in 7 years, it's grown 8%. So I'm gonna make 8% of my money, when you know that the interest rates are damn near zero right now. So having money in the bank, you're not gonna get anything for, right? So a lot of times, yeah, you gotta look at that, and then there's diversification as well, right? So stocks may be one thing, and then you may be investing in something else as well while you're running business or having a job. So I mean, there's so many different ways to do it, but like you said, I think the people in our communities need to be educated, before they can even make those decisions, because then it becomes the lotto with the stocks. You start just kind of throwing money away and thinking that you know how to do things.
Right, or like, for example, Bitcoin. Like, there are stories of people that are taking out mortgages for Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, I mean, that space is hot, right? But Bitcoin is probably like the gold standard, but the ICOs and the cryptocurrency is something a lot different, right? So every day there's new ICOs, which is, for the people out there, initial coin offerings, just like a initial public offering for IPO. But people are doing that every day, and I think it's going to bust. I think that bubble is going to bust, and maybe those probably 50 to 200 companies are stand still, the ones that's doing right by their investments. But a lot of people are taking money in and just being frivolous with it and spending it on all type of things and not really invested in anything that has to do with the business. So, it'll bust, but I think Bitcoin will live. I don't know if it's going to, at the price that it is now, which I think is around 19,200 today. Up from 17,000 a couple days ago. I mean, we're seeing it. They're saying it's going to reach 100,000, but it's hard to say. I actually don't play in that. I've never, did any mining, anything like that. But, I pay attention to what's going on.